Hey, buddy, welcome to Teaching to the Test Pattern. My name is Tom White, and I am your host for this show. And on this episode, we continue our conversation with Faraz Ahmed and Phillip Green from Amitrace here in Atlanta. They are a great partner to a lot of educators throughout the state, and we're going to talk about that much later in one of the other episodes. In today's episode, we talk about the NDI tools and how they can be used in a classroom setting. We talk about a centralized control room for news and for sports. We also talk about how you can use PTZ cameras in your workflow. Super rich, super great content today. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it helps you unravel this mystery that is sometimes NDI. Today's show is brought to you by schoolvideonews.com, where right now you can read about my situation where we had Spaghettygate 2019, and no one dropped a camera into spaghetti. It was a month-long campaign that my students and I went through to drive home the point of media bias and media conversation and how the right message any message given at any time by the media can be used for good or for evil. So go check that out right now on the front page of schoolvideonews.com. That's not the only article there. There's literally thousands and thousands of articles that you can use to help you improve as a video production educator. No matter where you are, elementary, middle, high, post-secondary, wherever you are, there's an article there for you. So this episode is super awesome. We start off with talking about the NDI tools that are very expensive, as you'll hear later in the episode. So have a great one. Enjoy this episode of Teaching to the Test Pattern.
He can cook a shoe and it'll taste delicious. You don't even have to bring your own, he says. And that's neat. It's Tom White. This is Teaching to the Test Pattern.
So let's unpack the NDI applications. It's not just the Adobe plugin. It's not just Studio Monitor. It's
Scan Converter, the artist says Studio Monitor, the what's the other one called with the Zoom?
Transmit?
Yes, Transmit, which is allowing NDI into your Zoom and your GoToMeeting and your Skype calls.
You get Test Generator and things like that. And the VLC plugin.
Oh, the VLC plugin, yes.
Yeah. So these are all different just NDI tools. Basically, often NDI tools, all they're doing is encoding something or decoding something. And so VLC plugin is basically encoding the VLC output to be NDI. Studio Monitor is essentially decoding any NDI stream so you can view it. Transmit, same thing. It's decoding it on that computer and making it a USB camera so you can see it in Skype and things like that. They all do fancy things around that, but typically an NDI tool is encoding or decoding something.
and all of these tools are extremely expensive.
Of course. Just send me a credit card and then I'll send you a link. All these plugins are completely free. And there's so many cool tools out there that are completely free or inexpensive because it's using computer hardware, right? No one had to develop a custom chip or anything. It's, they're coding some cool, clever stuff and then able to sell that to you for a low cost or with the NDI tools completely free. So that Premiere plugin and Studio Monitor are completely free. And so if you're an educator editing in Premiere, I urge you to try that workflow.
And it's not just Premiere. That's the
Adobe Suite.
It's a lot of the apps. I used it with my animation course with Character Animator. And it will take your animated character while your student is sitting there looking in their webcam and making the sounds and moving their eyes and all that. It will take that straight in as an input, which is a beautiful overlay when you can make that happen.
And it supports alpha too, which I think is extremely important because you can now just have a complete new character generator from...
How cool is that? I've never even thought of that workflow that you're just talking about, where you could have a 3D character that someone is animating live on your morning broadcast.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
and, I think at the high school level, but imagine at an elementary school level if you create a character and your principal then becomes that character, and your announcements could be fully animated, and it's something that's appealing to those kids.
It's wild. That's so wild. So cool. Sorry.
This is why I don't sleep at night, because I think of things like that. So one of my personal goals is to create a centralized control room for athletics. We use New Blue Effects for our graphics, and there's a couple apps in there that allow us to do some stuff for scoreboard and that. Are you seeing people go that route? I'm starting to. I think I see it a little more. I know that for me, I'm really tired of carrying tens of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of pounds of equipment to the top of a press box every week. Are you guys seeing that? Is that something that's on the horizon?
Yeah. White County, for example, he's using a ton of NDI in his press box, and it's hitting the network switch, and it's coming down. I personally would like to have an NCIO unit for stability. That way I do local SDI up in the press box, but then it's NDI one way, and that's full 8 channels coming down. That would be my personal preference, just because I don't want to have different converters for each person and all that. But
at the high school level, what we've noticed, everyone wants to do it. The typical thing that decides it is, where are the network ports? Is it just in the press box, or what's happening with that? And so people are figuring out different workflows of a hybrid, right? SDI is still great. And so let's run SDI to the press box, and then from there get everything NDI, and we still don't have to move our announcers and graphics and instant replay and all that other stuff. And centralized control room for sports makes a lot of sense. But what folks kind of forget is that you also have your entire campus, right? So something incredible is happening in the commons area or the theater or in the gym, a pep rally, whatever, or someone's getting presented, teacher of the year in the classroom. All those things can now be seen throughout the school if you'd like. Not with taking out a bunch of equipment. It could be as simple as one robotic camera that plugs into the wall, that has power and audio and video and control and tally. And you don't have to be in there. You can still be in your control room.
So you said robotic camera. I was shocked several weeks ago running, looking for testing NDI stuff, and my PTZ optics camera pops up, and like, when did this happen? Going to go on a tangent away from NDI for a moment and talk about PTZ cameras, not necessarily just the optics, but just across the board. Those are a great solution for a lot of issues in education, because most of them are PoE, so they're powered over Ethernet. You can send NDI down the same cable, and it's full audio and video. Are you seeing that? I mean, that's something that I have to admit, I was like, I'll never do PTZ. It doesn't make sense to me, but it sure is nice now to reach over and go boop, and it changes the focus and the point that it's going to.
Bill Phelps over at Harrison High School is actually, we did this together. We hung 2 PTZs upside down, one in the studio and one in his control room, and he has a little talk show where he just looks up at the camera while the kids are behind him, just working and doing the show, and he's doing his little presentation right there in front of that PTZ camera. So that's one use. Again, I've mentioned that before, in the commons area, where you can just kind of look around the main hall where kids are just being, kids. I see teachers using it in their classroom as just a security camera. So while they're doing their production, they can just look over and see what's going on in their classroom. And PTZ, like Charles up in White County, he's using 3 PTZs, I believe, in his press box. One's constantly looking at the scoreboard. The other 2 are actually being controlled by a student in the central control room. And so that's one less body, or that's 2 less bodies, really, that you have to worry about up in the press box.
So for me, I have a lot of opinions about PTZs. They're amazing. They're absolutely, and there's no but to this, they're amazing. But just like everything, there is a but, I guess. But just like everything else, you have to be trained on them, right? And so, sensitive. I mean, I've been using them, I guess, 6-7 years. And the first 2 years I used them, I was like, they're great for particular uses. They're great. But, I can't follow someone on stage back and forth with them, or I can't follow someone through a crowd. That's absolutely false. That is a lack of training and practice on my part. I have seen some incredible people, and it's not that they're young or it's a game or a joy. It's not about, it just takes practice. Just like it took me years to, get good at panning and following someone on stage. It takes time to do that. But you can do all those things. I've seen it over and over again with well-trained professionals, with consumer-level cameras or prosumer-level PTZs that can literally follow someone in a crowd, follow them all the way on stage, move back back and forth and keep them absolutely steady. And they get an amazing angle because that camera is actually on stage behind almost. It's somewhere where you can't put a normal camera.
It's in the lighting truss.
Lighting truss. It just, and so I think that a lot of times we miss the boat when we say, I need multiple students or whatever, and I don't want to train them on a PTZ camera. What they're going to go see, it doesn't really matter how big of a broadcast facility you go. The tiny ones and big ones all have gone to PTZ for the flexibility, for the cost. They're all doing robotic cameras. And it just makes sense. The amount of options you get out of them is amazing. It
can make really a good option for, say, a new program that's just starting out. You don't have the personnel. You don't have kids. You could have 5 kids, and you're trying to do a live production with 5 kids. That's very hard to do. So having 2 or 3 of these PTZ cameras where you can just throw up on a tripod, say on the gym floor, and plug a cable in, now you got 1 kid running a 3-camera production.
PTZ saved my graduation last year. I had 5 kids scheduled, and no kids showed up. It was a good day for me. It was 1,000,000 degrees, and when you guys came in, you saw the construction. Well, we didn't have power in the press box, and we haven't had power all year. We've been running off of a generator.
Wow!
So I'm up there freaking out, going, "All right, well." Then we fired up the generator, and I just took the rundown and was like, "Okay, they're going to come in there," so and just plotted out my show and went that way. This spring, my challenge to get better at PTZ and to use them more is I'm going to use them for baseball productions. Cool. I'm going to have a traditional camera that can follow the action and that kind of stuff, but then take 2 PTZs and do those set shots. I mean, you're always going to have a pitcher and catcher. You're always going to have somebody probably at third, and you're always going to have somebody hopefully crossing the plate. So just a couple of positions and you're there, and it only takes one person, and you can do some really cool stuff. So I'm really excited about that.
Can I share 2 tangents?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you might add them out. So one that I think is pretty cool, especially when I was thinking about baseball, is a virtual PTZ. This is a premium access feature that can be added to the Mini and a lot of the different TriCasters out there. So what you do essentially is you get any old 4K camera, right? 4K cameras are actually pretty common now, pretty affordable. They might not be big, they might not have the best everything, but you can get a decent 4K camera for inexpensive price. HDMI out,
$1,200,
into a NDI converter that takes 4K in.
The plus.
You bring that right into the TriCaster. And you're still, I don't know of any schools that are doing 4K productions. They're pretty much all doing HD productions. So 4K is essentially 4 times the resolution of HD. So you can basically have a wide shot of the entire stage, and then you can have a medium shot of the podium, and then you can have another tight shot somewhere else. And so you can get 3, 4, 5 different angles and even move around that 4K shot off of your one camera. And so that's virtual PTZ, which I think is really, really cool. And again, another skill set. And what's cool about virtual PTZ is that if you have a regular robotic camera, right, if I have a wide shot and then I want a tight shot of the podium, I have to zoom in. I can't cut from the wide to the tight directly. But with a virtual PTZ, I can go from the wide shot to the tight shot back and forth. You can actually do a multi-camera production with simply one camera, which is pretty cool.
And again, that's as a reminder, that's on the premium access side of things for the TriCaster. And I'll probably see a lot of people using that, but with their standard HD cameras, just please keep in mind the purpose is for 4K so that you don't lose that quality. If you use a standard HD camera, you're going to lose some quality trying to zoom in on a camera, just like you would if you did it digitally in Photoshop or whatever the case may be.
When you said that, I giggled because several weeks ago we had a signing here, and it was end of the day. I didn't have any kids. I didn't want to take kids out of class for it. So I set up a camera in the back of the room running over NDI, and I went, what if I, instead of streaming at 1080, go down to 720, and I take that 1080, and ME1 is the full, ME2 is, and that was kind of my my hack, for lack of a better word, to kind of pull that same effect off with just that one camera. When I zoomed in real tight, it wasn't the best quality, but for somebody's mom in Idaho or grandmother in Idaho who wouldn't be able to see it anyways, to see their family on stage in that capacity was good enough.
Absolutely.
I cheated one time in a football game when I had one of my converters died or whatever the case may be, so I only had one camera, so he had to be wide, but I was like, I don't want to lose my production quality, so I actually took another ME, dubbed it over, and then just zoomed it in, and it worked. I mean, it was the same shot, so it was a cut shot every single time. But hey, I got a tight shot out of it.
Whatever works, when you get out there in those situations, you just have to, I started with Wirecast several years ago doing that exact thing, and I was like, oh, this is easy, just and then going over to the new tech stuff, it made it a little bit easier.
This is Teaching to the Test Pattern.
So how about that hack? I mean, it's pretty cool to take one camera and make it look like three. You're gonna struggle with some things. It's not going to look as professional as if you did actually have three cameras, but there is a way through some software applications, Wirecast, OBS, vMix, any of those things, as well as some hardware applications, TriCaster, that you can digitally zoom in on an image and make it look like it's a cut shot to a tighter camera. Thank you for listening to today's show. I hope it was beneficial for you. I hope you walked away with at least one thing, one idea that you can use in your classroom coming up soon. And I hope it is demystifying what NDI is. So hope you enjoyed it. Look for the next episode coming out in the next day or so. Have a great one. Thank you for listening to Teaching to the Test Pattern, and go make some awesome.
Teaching to the Test Pattern.